Hi there. This video is an explanation about how we're trying to help practices manage the challenges we have now around consent with our vaccine campaigns. For some practices, this isn't a great issue because it might be that all of your vaccines are given by nurses or other registered health professionals anyway. If that's the case, you can still use our system. You can see up here the all eligible patients. Skip the section that starts with C around consent, which I'll go through in a moment. And you've got here all patients who are eligible. And our strong recommendation is only to use these invites and this section if all your vaccines are going to be given by registered health professionals, i.e. if you don't need to worry about the consent things at all. For our practice, and many of you, you have a mixed approach. So some will be given by nurses, some by HCAs. So the system we've developed first looks and works out who's already given consent. The way it's doing that is looking at COVID booster vaccines that have been administered in the last few years by registered health professionals, i.e. nurses, GPs, pharmacists, and so on. So if that's been done, then the consent is already in place, and that would put the patient then in the section PSDs to add for eligible and consented, and also invites to send eligible and consented. If that's not the case, we've developed a questionnaire that goes through kind of the key information and asks the patient to consent or not. We've sent out a good few hundred of those, which is why that's now showing a 0. The system's designed to send it as a questionnaire with a link via a link twice, or just a letter once. If a patient responds to that, and we've had hundreds who have, and they consent, that then puts them in this section, eligible and consented only. So these invites we can send in bulk. There's a link type that we've set up, COVID vaccination, and in that link type you would put both nurses and HCAs and so on, and you'd let patients book in that way. Now, it may be that some patients don't respond to these vaccine consent forms, or that we don't want to post them out because postage is not cheap. And so they would go into this section, invite, eligible, and not consented. Now, we're being quite careful about how prompts and things work for these patients. They'll only really trigger if either we can't text them, so we know they're kind of higher priority to try and get opportunistically if they're on the phone, or if we've invited them recently. The appointment invitation link is different. So you've got COVID vaccination RP standing for registered professional. And so in that link, you would only put, say, your nurses. If I show you on a test patient how this works, so this particular test patient hasn't yet had an invite, not least because they're a test patient. Or actually, did I do this earlier? No, I did do this earlier. So it's telling me we'd like to book your COVID vaccine. Can we book that for you now? So this bit is exactly the same, whether there's consent or not. If I click book, first of all, it's telling me use the appointment free slot search adult IMS RP for registered professional. And it's giving me the time frame because that's when the COVID season runs, and it must be with a registered health professional, e.g. a nurse, and not a HCA. So we've set up then a adult IMS RP, and we've only put our nurses in there. When the patient attends, everything else will work as normal. It will pick up that it's been given by a nurse, and so it won't be checking for consent and PSDs and things. If, however, the patient is booked in error with a HCA, the PSD wouldn't have been added because it certainly wouldn't be in the report to bulk add it. And so then if you click the give it COVID, it would pick up that it's been done under a PSD. It looks at the kind of role that someone's got when they're logged in, and it would say no PSD added. However, you might want to avoid that scenario in the first place. So we have also provided this report, booked, appointment booked here during COVID spring season, breakdown appointment details to check booked appropriately, i.e. they've not consented. The system thinks they're booked in because it looks like it's been booked using that prompt, but you might have booked the odd one with a HCA, and so you might want to look at moving those. The other big cohort we've got here, we've got a lot of patients in this category. So this is because when we first set up the slots, we hadn't put on the injection flag. If a slot is, say, 5 minutes or less, and it's got the injection flag applied, then the system will assume that that's an adult vaccine booked in. It will also pick that up if the system is used to book the appointment. What you can do here, though, is you can break down on appointment details. So these are patients who are eligible, have consented, have booked in, and might have the right thing booked. So I want to look at the appointment date because I want to check it's in the right season. I want to look at the rota type, and I want to look at the duration for us. Now, I know, because I checked our clinics earlier, that this list here, these 38 patients, are those who are booked into our COVID booster clinic. We don't normally have 5-minute appointments. That's what those are for. So I don't need to do it individually. I can just bulk add those codes. The codes, as ever, are in the report name to make life easier. And I can add the next one. 97Z ... And our system will now know that those patients are booked in. So that means they won't get further invites, they won't be prompted. Worst case scenario, if somehow in there there's something, someone's randomly booked something else that's not actually for the COVID booster or the patient DNAs, when that date is passed, they would drop back into the reports to chase, invite, prompt, and all the rest of it. So essentially, you need to just work through how you're working as a practice. If it's only registered health professionals giving the vaccines, you can just jump straight to this section and invite your patients from there. If it's only HCAs, you would only use this part. And if, like us, you've got a bit of a mix, we'd recommend you use this part first and do as much as you can that way. But if you want, you can then invite and chase patients who've not responded to consent offers and still give them the opportunity to book in. We think this will work well. We've been starting to use it ourselves, certainly with the consent questionnaires. In a way, this sort of COVID campaign gives us a little bit of a smaller sort of dry run, I guess, compared to flu season next year. But our plan is to roll this approach out across all the vaccine schedules and flu next winter. Hope you find it helpful. Obviously, let us know if any issues, if things aren't set up right for you. Some of this is looking at how you're configured as a practice, but we're also developing our prompts and things so that we're not just looking at what you've told us, but if the system sees that you've invited a patient for COVID vaccine, then our prompts and things will kick in. Thanks very much.